Hello friends, my name is Shivam from DevOps Schools and I will help you to enable your learning process in various technologies of DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and many more. This is our initiative to help you by sharing multiple tutorials and videos. And if you want any specific tutorials or any particular topic, then please do comment in the below comment section and I will help you with it. Also, please subscribe to our premium services on YouTube, which will give you access to more content and videos to enhance your knowledge about all these topics. Also, if you want me to help you with regards to the online trainings and classroom sessions by our qualified trainers, then please do write me at contact@devopsschool.com. Thank you.
What you call tunables. Clear, right? So that's it. Any questions here? That is about source side, right? So once this is clear, right, then we can talk about what transformation. So transformations means what? That's the last thing. So if you still want to cut down, let's say still could able to reach the goal, but still if you want to optimize it, then we need to go with what transformation. Transformations, we have got multiple transformations, right? So based on the type of transformation that we use, right? So we need to what you call apply appropriate tunables, not generic tunables. Some generic tunables you can use, but uh, uh, but task specific action should be taken care. In the sense, transformation specific tunable should be taken care of. So that's what need to be done. Now, for example, let us take one of the transformation, which is sorter, which we discussed, right? Yeah. Or let us start with what is the most widely consumable resource transformation within Informatica. To answer that, so which is what aggregator. Why? Because it does internal, let us say, organizing data, then followed by performing what grouping operation. So which means there are two what do you call expensive operations. Yeah? So which means what sort it maintains index, let us say that itself is a complex logic, which I think I said it to some extent yesterday. And grouping, again we need to group set of letter records, that's all ones in the top, all twos in the neck, and so on, right? And then within each group perform what appropriate logic, like sum or average, whatever. So that is why aggregator is what very expensive transformation. Now the question, how are we going to what apply tunables? That's a question, right? So to answer that, so there are some generic tunables, like let us say buffer size. Make sure that we set right buffer size, and partitions. Make sure that you use what you call dynamic partitions, or more number of partitions. And next, we also need to think of using what right cache size based on the amount of data that we deal on each of these partitions, based on what partition. And then we also need to talk about what you call so temporary directory, whatever, yeah, where we perform some intermediate operations, rest cache operations. Yeah. So and usage of less number of keys while grouping, right? So make sure that whatever is relevant, in the sense though we need 3 or 4 keys, can you cut down this to what, 1 or 2? If yes, cut it down. So that if we try to reduce the number of keys usage, right, definitely you'll get what performance benefit. Yeah. So that is what we could able to say as part of this particular what I call tunables. Clear, right? That's about aggregator. Yeah. So then once we do that, then we can go with what next expensive transformation is going to be sorter. Sorter part, I think I already said it. So these things more or less we need to apply. Yeah. Buffer part, partitions part is same. And here temp directory, which is going to play a very key role here, in the sense make sure that you separate temp directory where we got enough resources. Rest will be same as what we discussed for aggregator. Next is what joiner. Joiner transformation. Remember, so we combined right data right from multiple sources. No, yes or no, with a condition. So which is very expensive transformation. This one is also the reason why key check and perform combination. Right. So wherever you have key constraints, so definitely you'll have what you call performance issue. So how to cut it down? That is where we need to go with the push down. So if you have too many joins, or if you use too many joiners within your mapping, right? So it's always advisable to push this particular logic to what you call database side, so that database always they perform much better than what Informatica does. That's why PDO has become more powerful and most widely used type of automation technique. Yeah, fine. And that's about, let's say, joiner. Then lookup. So lookup case, remember, so lookup never ever use what to deal with large data. Yeah, large data means what, always go with what, the joiner. Joiner is very good to perform joining data for large volumes because it uses what, intermediate disk as an intermediate storage. But a lookup, we should never ever think of using what, to process very large data in lookup table. That's what I meant. Lookup should have what, a small data. Then only we can go with a lookup. Or else, if we have large data, then what happens? There is a chance to occur thrashing, which we need to avoid of doing it. Remember this. Yeah? I repeat, we should avoid this getting into the thrashing part. As the reason why we get into thrashing, because corruption, memory corruption happens, and it's very difficult to identify where it went wrong. The problem, it will show in one place, but the reality will be some other place. So it's very difficult to isolate a column if we go with a lookup with what I call larger number of records. That is why, but lookup is good if you go with what, smaller number of records. Clear, right? So then, now once we do that, similarly, so we should avoid using filter transformation and use what, router, as much as you could. Why? Because router is equal to switch, where we can just what you call reduce the number of conditions which need to be evaluated. As a result, that's one thing. And second thing is what, we have also talked about the benefit that we get with this particular router transformation, which is going to be what called, we can cut down the data transfer overhead from upstream transformations or filter to, sorry, upstream transformations to router. That will be only many to one, in the sense many upstream transformation, let's say upstream one, upstream two, or whatever, right? Anything. Yeah, let us take upstream one, and then you have a router, then followed by any number of conditions within a router, which is n number of conditions. But in case of filter, for every condition, we have to have what, separate filter transformation, which results in what, a creation of overhead or getting into performance overhead. That we can cut down by using what, a router. Yeah. So then SP part, when it comes to stored procedure, we have got what are, there are two ways to take care of SP, right? So if the SP complex logic is complex, and then it is always advisable to make a call. If it is simple and easy to implement, and if the Informatica is going to perform better than, let us say, database, then go with what, Informatica. Or else it's better to make a call rather than what you call building the same logic within this Informatica. Yeah. So that's about what you call. Likewise, you can think of other transformations which you guys can explore. Yeah. Now, so ETL part, let's say we discussed from this particular Informatica perspective. Yeah. Next thing is what? How about let's say, though we have applied all this what you call tunables, still we are unable to meet the what you call the expectations. In that case, what do we need to do? We need to start getting into what, one, operating system side we need to look at, and second, we also need to take a look at hardware side, which means what, scale up should be done from hardware side, and also corresponding scale up operations should be configured in operating system side. That is what we need to do. For example, let us say heap size settings should be done, and stack size settings should be done, and shared memory settings should be done, system. And we also need to set what, IO pools, which are disk IO pool settings. All such things should be taken care within this particular what you call operating system side. Yeah. So based on what, if you take IO pools, where you will see, if you issue IO start command, right? So like how many blocks that have been read, how many black blocks that have been written. So those things you'll get it. As a result, what you can see the read and write block is in sync or not with respect to what, data transfer when you run Informatica. If they are, it's okay. If not, we need to change this IO block sizes. Yeah. So that's what we need to do. But still, if you are unable to take care of what we expect after changing this also, then what we need to do? We need to increase what? The scale up things. In the sense, add what you call some more physical boxes so that we can reach the expectations. That's all we need to do with respect to what this optimization. Any questions from anybody? You're all there, right? Oh, what I myself kept on talking. No, right?
No, no, we are there. I am there.
No, no, we are there.
Fine, fine.
We are there.
What, Subha madam? Last month you are enjoying, huh? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's it.
Come
Now,
on, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Fine. Now let us see like where we need to configure this setting. Yeah. Let's go to the tool and see like where there is a need to perform this configuration of it. Yeah. Some of them I'll try to show it. Rest you guys can explore it. Yeah. So let me go to this particular Informatica. Yeah. Go to, let us say, so main thing here is what workflow level or session level, those things we need to remember. Yeah. Like how to configure. Yeah. So mapping level, specific actions, and says specific transformation settings should be taken care of there. So let us see here. Let us take one of the transformation. Let me open first one. Yeah. So where? So look at here. So we need to make sure that we understand this. What properties of session properties. Yeah. Dinesh, are you there? Dinesh has some problem to the system. Yeah. So can you see your properties here? So log file name we discussed and parameter file name we discussed. The test files for only for testing purpose, which we can ignore. Yeah, these are the connection settings. If you want, you can also add it here. But yeah, so treat source as insert target. What do you call? This is basically the very important thing. Can you see here the commit type? Normally we use commit type target, right? Not necessarily. We can also use what? User defined. User defined where we can specify parameter value, which could be a source or target. Remember, yeah. So don't think that commit we use only on target side. Why? Because we talked about push down automation, right? Pushing of data can happen to a source or to a target depending upon how large the database and how what I call well the database has been tuned. Yeah. And commit interval by default is 10,000 bytes. We can change it to the larger number or smaller number depending upon amount of data that we process. I think we talked about this one of the tunable, right? Yes or no? Yeah. And then recovery strategy. So this I didn't talk about one concept here. There's a concept called restarted checkpointing, meaning what? When you create any workflow, right? So now, let's say one of the tasks which got failed, and as a result, workflow got failed. Then what happens when you run next time? It is going to start from the beginning. How to cut it down? That is where restarted checkpointing would come in. Means what? Restart from a place where it got ended. Which means what? Resume rather than restart. Just remember that. Yeah? It's as simple as that. Yeah? So recover strategy. Failed task and continue workflow. Can you see here? Restart from last checkpoint. This is what I was trying to say. So that we can get a lot of performance benefit. For example, let's say we have got 1 million records and 99% of 1 million records have been completed. Only 1% is not completed. So if we restart, no, again it will take a lot of time to complete all 1 million records. So we can just cut down that by using what? This particular recover strategy. And next, I talked about DTM buffer size. Yes or no? So by default it will be auto. We can change that number so to what I call based on amount of data that we deal with. So what we can do is we can apply mathematics to calculate. For example, let's say there are 10 rows and 20 fields, and each field size 10. So 10 20 fields how much? 200. 210 rows how much? 2000. So based on that, we need to set what DTM buffer size. Likewise, depending upon amount of data and fields and each field size, we need to calculate and set the buffer size accordingly. Here, remember, that's how we need to calculate. So blindly we should not go with some order number, let Informatica take care. It does it, but it does not understands everything, right? So we need to make it to get understandable. So to do that, if you supply the right input buffer size, then it does an optimal way. Yeah. And collect performance, if you enable that, right? So we could in session log, we could able to say like a CPU, how much CPU is being used, and memory and disk information. Yeah. So if you want to write this to repository also, it is going to write it. And incremental aggregation, this is also another concept. Remember, in aggregation, let us say we have got two aggregations within the same mapping. Now first aggregation, you what do you call, you have done grouping based on department number. Other aggregation, that's the same thing you need to do. That's a department number, uh, but but what we need to do, only modified or modified data only we need to apply increment, what you call, aggregation, not for the data which is already aggregated. So how to do that? That is where, what sorry, that's where we need to select what incremental aggregation, which means what, avoid aggregation as much as you could. You know, just focus on the ones which is not aggregated earlier, so that we could able to see the real power of this particular aggregation. Or else, as I said earlier, when we started with talking about transformations, right? Aggregation is the first and foremost heavily consumable resource transformation within Informatica. Not only that, everywhere, even from reporting perspective, also if you see reporting tools, also aggregation is one of the major culprit. Yeah? So but we can configure, make sure to get what, right performance or right what do you call, effective results. Yeah. And high precision, this basically for to get the right data, and that is purely from accuracy perspective. Like if you take metrology, right, where if we use vernier calipers or screw gauge that we are going to use to measure and come up with what right tolerance limits, and what you call, measure it. That's what we do in normal physics or in metrology to specific. But can you do it with Informatica with respect to each data limit, in the sense each field level? Yes, answer is yes. That's why we need to enable what, high precision. Yeah. Now the next is what, PDO. That's what I was saying, push down optimization, right? Where we can push it to a source, a target, or full, or we can specify the parameter. Parameter could be what, again, within our parameter file we supply value. Value could be source, a target, or full. That's what is the parameter. Yeah. But if you are sure about what you are doing, let us say whichever is good. Let's say target or source, whatever, right? Let Informatica take a call, like a way to push it, so that we'll get what, right performance results. Yeah. That's where this PTO comes in. And allow temporary view for shutdown, in the sense for push down, in the sense what, in case if you have any what you call views, uh, the views also can be pushed to what you call this push to what, appropriate target or source. And sequence also, in case you have any sequences also. And for incompatible connections, for example, let's say target is DB2 and source is Oracle. In that case also still allow, whichever database is good, then push it there. We don't care about whether Oracle or DB2 or Teradata or Hex or whatever. So as long as the database performs better with respect to numbers, what you call performance numbers, will just push it to that particular database. In that case, we can just select what, incompatible connections. Yeah. So that's it. Now I think we talked about this session sort order, right? In log files we have seen it. So by default we deal with what, English characters, so it uses what, sort order as what, binary. But if you deal with some other languages like Spanish or whatever, right, so appropriate sort order should be used. We should not use what, binary sort order if you deal with what other language, especially the ones which are listed as part of this drop down. So that's it. Like how to configure this what I call, session properties. Any questions over here, so that we can talk about it? Yeah. Yeah, fine. Anyway, you can ask questions later also. Can you see constant based ordering? Remember, this is one of the very important thing. When you see, normally what happens is we load the database in the constraint with key base, right? Row ID object, picky source object, or some other composite object. Take that object as a base and start performing what, load here target. That's what we do. But yes, ordering also we can maintain. But if you just apply, if you have too many keys, where you need to dump the data onto the target based on this particular keys. In such cases, we can specify what, constant based ordering, load ordering, so that Informatica performs better, which is the right key, so that we can push it first, then followed by maintaining the order for downstream or other keys. And cache lookup, remember, Lookup works purely based on what cache. We have got different types of caches, like we have got static cache, dynamic cache, shared cache, and persistence cache. So, but by default, lookup uses what? Static cache, meaning what? Once you get the data every day, if you get data from the source with respect to lookup, right? It is going to recreate a cache. If there are 100 rows, for all the 100 rows, it is going to create a cache and perform a lookup. That's what we call static cache. But let us say out of 100 rows, only one or two rows would get changed, and rest of the rows will be same. In a sense, measured of the data where it won't undergo any change, only few records will undergo change. In that case, we should never ever think of using what? Static cache. We need to use what? Dynamic cache. Dynamic means what? Check and update, which means wherever there is a change, only for those rows only cache will be updated. Rest will be used as it is. In the sense, whatever was there earlier, it will be reused. Yeah. And other cache is what? Persistent cache, meaning what? As the name suggests, persistent, right? If you have multiple sessions within the workflow where we need to make use of this cache across a number of sessions, then we create a cache and put it in one cache location, and other sessions also can refer to it. So which means what? In case if you want to use same cache across a number of sessions, right? Then it's always advisable to go with what? Selection of persistent cache. So this part we normally what you call configure it as part of lookup. So lookup we have got multiple types of caches like what you call, which I talked about just now, shared or whatever. And once you configure the right cache, then you'll get better performance results. Like I talked about some scenarios, right? Yeah. And there's one more cache, shared cache. Let us say if you use lookup more than once within the same mapping, right? Then we need to start making use of shared cache. This is once one transformation created, that's a cache, other transformers can make use of it rather than recreation of it. You know? So let me try to open this. Yeah. So once you look at this particular lookup, right, where we could able to see what you call different types of caches which can be configured here. So these are purely driven what you call based on what? Performance perspective. What is this? Yeah, that's about lookup. But lookup is very danger, especially when you deal with what large data I just said. Yeah? So you should be very careful while making use of this particular lookup. Yeah? Yeah. Can you see here in this particular lookup? So we'll have cache. Yeah. Can I say cache persistent? If you enable that, by default it will just what? Static cache. That's implied. And now if you want persistent cache, right? So we need to enable the checkbox. This is one thing. uh, And then dynamic cache. If you want to use dynamic cache, no, then can you see here? Dynamic cache lookup. This need to be enabled. So persistent dynamic we could able to see, and static is a default. Remember this, yeah. So if you want static, sorry, dynamic or persistent, right? We can always enable this particular checkboxes. Yeah. This here we need to configure. See here. So we can also select this static also. If you don't select also, it will be static. What is static only? That's a default behavior of this particular lookup. So static we could able to see, and dynamic we could able to see, and shared which is not supported here. So we just have to the latest one. Yeah. So that's it. Like how the cache should be enabled over here. And one more thing, SQL override. By default, we use what key comparison, right? Source with the lookup. But if you want to override that query, we can write our own SQL query so that this comparison of source with lookup would take place in that way. That's it. That's where this particular override would come in. Now let's go back to this workflow manager. Yeah, these are all optimal options which I'm trying to talk. Now default block size, yes, buffer block size, yes. Again, this is based on what how much memory that you, sorry, how much data that you transfer into supply that. Line sequential buffer length. Similar, remember in session log we have seen 7026, right? I said which is the wrong number. This is how we need to specify the number. This should be in terms of multiples of what? Twos. Yeah. And maximum memory allowed is 512 MB, we can still increase. In case if we have your capacity is what is big and you need to process very large data. So that anyway, but too much is also not good because we need to look at even other what you call workflows also, right? We should, because we have memory doesn't mean that we should use it for one. We also think on what we also have to do capacity planning in a sense, with the inclusive of other workflows or other applications that are up and running the same production environment. Clear, right? And maximum percentage was also can specify. And concurrent pipeline mechanism we talked about, right? You can change the number if you don't want to use the pre-built option. Yeah. So that's it about log things. If you want to dump this log to what, even to some other what I call target, right, file or whatever, right? We can also do it by specifying number of log files, all that. That's very straightforward. How many files, how many log files, how much is size for each log file. That's not optimal. That's some minor thing. This is the one, error log type. If you want to capture the, like we talked about error messages, all that, right? If you want to capture separate file, separate database, we can always do it, provided we need to specify the details over here. And errors will be captured in a separate log file, which is going to be PM error log, all that. Log row data, log source data also can be captured as part of separate log file if you want to do that. So dynamic partitioning, that's where partitioning we talked about, right? So we can just specify what you call how many partitions that you want here, 1 or 2 or 3. So default is 1 because we are dealing with a single node configuration, but we can increase this number to a larger number like 3 or 4 or whatever, depending upon one, number of CPUs that we have, and second, number of boxes we have, and number of what you call resources that have been allocated to your application, which is informatic application. Based on that, we need to supply this particular number of partitions so that we could avail the power of this particular informatic. These are the different tunables that we need to apply, that we can configure as part of what session level. So this is one of the major challenging part, which requires a lot of mathematical computation which need to be done based on the kind of data that you process at session level, at workflow level, at mapping level, at transformation level, at thread level. So we need to consider all these factors while performing what or applying the tunables. Once we do that, our workflows definitely would run faster than what it was with the default parameter, with default settings, right? So that's it about this particular what you call tuning part. In case you have any questions, please start asking those questions. Now we'll go with what question answers. Yeah, any kind of question. So whatever topic, or technical or functional or solution wise, because I played a role of right from programmer to solution architect, so I'm supposed to answer any kind of question, syntactical, logical, from programming or from tool, even from solution perspective, and also from analyst side. So I played all the roles, so I'm supposed to answer any kind of question. If not, I'm not a good guy. It's as simple as that. Yeah, fine. Now it's your turn to ask questions. I think I spend a lot of time to explain many topics. Yeah, fine. Looks like it's exhausted. So what you need to do is, I'll share the material. So you'll get a lot of material from browser. Yesterday also I said it, and Google it, you'll get it. There's a lot of material. And second thing is what, in case you have any questions, right, later on, project or whatever, you can try to send a mail. So if I get time, I'll respond to it. Definitely I'll respond, but provided I need to check mail. So regularly I'll not check. So once in a day, or let's say 2 days, or let's say once in 2 days, like that I'll check. Once I check, no, I'll definitely respond. That's the second thing. And yes, so now it's your turn to ask questions. Yeah, if there are no questions, then we'll stop. If you supply one of our email ID, right, I'll share the material, and recordings you'll get it from Spring people. They'll share it. So you can just get it from them. Yeah, fine.
Please enroll our general membership for $399 plan to get access of all the parts. Along with that, you can access our other tutorials such as Docker, Ansible, Jenkins, Terraform, Splunk, AWS, Azure, and various other DevOps related premium tutorials with our channel membership. If you would have any issues with our channel membership, you can drop an email to us at contact@devopsschool.com, or you can also unsubscribe from channel membership anytime if you don't want to continue or did not like the video. To get our channel membership, click onto the join button, select the $399 plan and grow your skills immensely. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries. We will reply to them at the earliest. Thanks for watching.